Macha, have you seen those EV bikes, sir? The motor is so silent, dude. Too awesome it is, bro.
सर इंग्लैंड அடுத்து ईवी चार्जिंग स्टेशन எங்கே இருக்கு?
प्रदीप, तुम्हारी बेटी ईवी खरीद रही है। जरा उसे बोलना सोच समझ के खरीदे। 4-5 साल के बाद कौन खरीदेगा? कम से कम साधारण गाड़ी में तो कुछ वैल्यू मिलता है।
Hello and welcome to L is for Labour, your source of information for all things labour. This series takes you through the world of work in India. When I was a kid back in the 90s, I watched the movie trilogy Back to the Future on repeat. Starring a young Michael J. Fox, the movie had everything in it from adventure and comedy to time travel. In the second film, the car which they used to time travel was actually powered by waste. When watching those movies back then, I never thought a day would come when cars would be powered by anything other than traditional options like gasoline or diesel. But zooming into 2025, some of the predictions from the movies have indeed come true. We also have cars these days which can be powered by waste, although perhaps more indirectly, say via biogas or biofuels. Most importantly though, e-rickshaws transporting people everywhere, delivery riders driving by on electric bikes, and even electric buses are common sights in our cities these days. Given the alarming scale of the climate crisis, conversations around electric vehicles or EVs are essential, especially given our pressing need to decarbonize and move towards greener pathways with both industry and our everyday living. But how much will EVs help? From a labour perspective, will they cause job losses to people already grappling with livelihoods precarity? And what does this mean for the traditional automotive sector? According to a government report from April this year, India's automobile industry contributes nearly 7.1% to the national GDP and accounts for nearly 49% of the country's manufacturing GDP. This means a shift to EVs is a big deal, even from an industry perspective. So where do we stand at the moment with respect to our EV transition?
Overall, today the EV transition in India can be said to be consistently progressing. I mean, it's been picking up with some rapidity over the past few years. Maybe in the last 1 or 2 years, that growth hasn't been as rapid, but it has been consistently growing. And that's important to state because there's a lot of popular narratives that are also saying that, EVs are now facing too many headwinds, they are slowing down, ICE vehicles are back. Not really. There are ups and downs in how fast the EV sector is growing, but globally, I think what we've been saying is that it is consistently growing. Of course, there are countries across the world where it has reached even 95 to 98%. That's mostly Norway. But in several European countries and all, it's hit above 20% EV penetration. In many emerging countries, including India, we're still to reach the 10% mark. When we talk about targets or forecasts, the government of India has set a target of achieving 30% EV sales as part of overall vehicle sales by 2030. This is as part of a global commitment. International Energy Agency, which does these forecasts for various countries across the world, including India, has forecast that India will comfortably reach 30%. The Society of the Industrial Association for Automotive Manufacturers, SIAM, they have also projected or forecast that EV penetration can be close to 40% by 2030, with higher penetration of two-wheelers and three-wheelers, of course, and lower penetration of other vehicles. But as you can see, the forecasts are bullish, and I wanted to give 2 or 3 sources for the forecasts to show that it's not just, one target. It also forecasts by reputed international agencies, and traditional automotive industry associations are sort of saying the same thing. As the EV transition grows, it may go faster or slower a little, but let's be clear that it is going to be significant in the next 5 years, right? And if you look at it segment-wise, of course, the growth is fastest in three-wheelers. Actually, they have crossed like 25% EV penetration. And this is even the e-auto rickshaws. So e-rickshaws are a completely separate beast, which kind of came up with the EV revolution, and they are like 100 100% EVs because they are a born EV sort of vehicle segment, and they're concentrated in the north. But even if you look at auto rickshaws and three-wheeler cargo vehicles, more than 25 to 30% of them have actually been electrified today.
So, given that EVs are a segment to watch, two key overarching themes arise.
The first is that of people versus industrial change. Is it likely that job losses will occur owing to EVs? How does this link to ensuring equitable transitions? And finally, how do we ready our ecosystems for this change?
Commencing with the theme of people versus industrial change. Have you ever struggled to do something on a computer and then had someone tell you, "Oh, don't be such a Luddite"?
The term Luddite stems from innovation-driven joblessness during the Industrial Revolution in 18th century England. At the time, increased mechanization resulted in large-scale job losses. A famous event from an English textile factory in 1779 describes a worker named Ned Ludd, who broke two knitting frames in frustration over mechanization-driven layoffs, on the heels of which Britain at the time witnessed mass unrest. Today, the term Luddite is used in a disparaging manner to describe someone who is technologically inept. Despite the very serious concerns surrounding any unrest whatsoever, it is perhaps unfair that the term is used so disparagingly today. Underlying all of this was clearly some serious desperation surrounding job loss as well as economic distress.
But we are, luckily, not stuck in time in 18th century Britain, where women wear corsets and bloodletting is a common medical practice.
Hopping on to our own time travel machine and coming back into present day, what do experts say about both job creation and job loss as regards the EV sector?
The EV transition in India is not going to look the same as the EV transition in other countries. And why is that? Because we have a growing market. We have a growing auto market. So I will illustrate this in the form of jobs, right? So one of the big questions again is, will the EV transition result in more jobs, fewer jobs? What will the impact on jobs be? There has not been too much research on this in India, but there is some. And one study from a few years ago, it was a study conducted by CEW, estimates that with a 30% sales share of electric vehicles by 2030, you would have 20 to 25% fewer jobs by 2030. But that doesn't actually mean you're going to lose jobs. Why is that? Because today we are manufacturing about 25 million vehicles. By 2030, with the growth of around 8 to 10% per year, we might be manufacturing around 40 million vehicles or 50 million vehicles even. So essentially the entire size of the market is growing. So jobs as such, absolute number of jobs are not diminishing. The pace of growth of employment in that sector may reduce, but it is unlikely that, there will be absolute job losses. Another thing that we are noticing is the total number of parts in an ICE automotive is about 2,000. In an EV, that comes down to around 200. A lot of the mechanical parts go away. A lot more electronic parts come in. So which industries you're drawing from will change. You will have a higher dependence on the electronics industry or sector, and you will have a lower one on the die casting, forging sectors, which have sort of traditionally created a lot of those mechanical parts through mechanical processes. So that's a second change. A third change is you are seeing sort of your supply chains maybe get a lot more vertically integrated. So today, battery pack design and technology sits with the OEM. They will work with their maybe importers or their guys outside the country, but inside the country, a lot of the work they are keeping the R&D with them. So there may be fewer suppliers again well into the future when the transition starts happening at scale. And a lot more of the IP sort of gets integrated by the larger companies in-house. Automotive, there have been a lot of large tier 1 suppliers. So like Bosch, Minda, all of these were these big corporations that were holding on to significant components like the engine technology, a bunch of different technologies. Some of that we're seeing get a little more integrated, the powertrain technologies into the vehicle manufacturers themselves. So you're going to see a little bit of rejigging of supply chains.
In a 2022 NBER working paper, the economist David Autor shows, amongst various other things, how many occupations kept being added to the US Census Bureau's classified list of operations over time. Clearly, back in the 1940s, drama therapists had not even been thought of, and nor had the chat room hosts even of the 2000s. This is also apparent from the graph here, which shows that more than 60% of present-day jobs in the United States had not been invented in the time of the 1940s. So perhaps our first question surrounding people versus industrial change is a bit of an insufficient framing, because for one, jobs will be created in some areas given the nature of the supply chain itself will shift, but in other areas the growth will slow, specifically with feeder industries which currently relate to the traditional auto sector. The bigger questions, therefore, are how we ensure these changes are beneficial for both industry but as well as workers. And we need to consider how to safeguard those most vulnerable in the supply chain. From a labor perspective, one of the sizable challenges in this regard is the informality of our workforce. For instance, in Delhi, where most of the EVs operating are e-rickshaws, a sizable portion of the e-rickshaws operate informally. This means we have 115,000 registered vehicles, but the actual numbers are likely to be much more, by many X. As a consequence, unregistered vehicles run by drivers trying to scrape by a living charge their vehicles at informal charging points, with a much greater risk to their lives. Earlier this year, a fire in an e-rickshaw charging station in Shahdara district claimed the lives of 2 teenagers sleeping inside the station. Similar incidents have been reported at other charging stations as well. Incidents like these make it apparent that any conversations surrounding transitions to EVs also need to consider worker safeguards and regulatory questions, such as how do we ensure people have access to livelihoods opportunities, but that there are also some basic occupational health and safety standards which are in place, especially for those who are the most vulnerable in the supply chain. Finally, we have the question of how to build our ecosystems to enable these shifts to EVs and what this means for skilling.
There are some 35 to 45,000 MSMEs that actually make up the auto component manufacturing in India. Auto component manufacturing is everything apart from the vehicle guys. So your, Tata Motors, your Mahindras, these are all your vehicle OEMs. Everyone that supplies to them are the auto component manufacturers. And those guys package the vehicle, put it together. They've designed it and these guys have made it as per their designs and they sell it. So that's what vehicle OEMs do. And all the auto component manufacturers make all the other parts for them. That is like 90% MSMEs. And most of those MSMEs are actually like single person, single employee or like small families. So they're actually in the micro part of the micro, small and medium enterprises classification. So how they transition and how well they can transition, it will also mark industry health. Because again, as you get more technical, as you're getting you're requiring different skill sets and everything, you may have companies that are unable to keep up. And in general, across industry, not just auto, but in general, what you're seeing is a greater consolidation towards larger companies. So smaller companies are at risk, and so that could lead to employment problems in pockets, right? And that is maybe the lowest income, most marginalized groups that would require, most vulnerable groups that would require support that may actually be vulnerable. Again, maybe not in the next 4-5 years, but over a longer period of time, yes. That gives us an advantage, at least in India, because we do not have a saturated market. And so we have a longer time to plan for our transition and put in safeguards to ensure that if there are certain parts of the value chain that are going to not have as much business anymore, can we start developing reskilling pathways for them and start providing support to them so that they can transition to other sectors. They may not want to stay in auto, they may not want to transition to EV. If you have like all these guys that are doing die casting and forging, for example, which are very mechanical processes, they won't have space in EV and they won't want to necessarily change their entire industry business. So they may move to another sector. They may increase their reliance on another sector, which still requires these processes. But this requires some planning and some support from government, because many of the smallest companies that may need to transition also do not have the resources to plan for such a transition.
In the end, one thing is clear. EVs are a segment to watch and could be of immense benefit as we continue our decarbonization journey. But as always, we need to center conversations around those who may be vulnerable in our supply chains. So, conversations surrounding awareness amongst MSMEs, skilling, to even tackling tough questions such as how to address informality would go a long way.
So I'm going to zoom off now into my own future where I honestly hope a steaming mug of chai awaits me. So until next time, and I hope in the meanwhile we all continue to think about just transition.
The Migration Story.